Town! The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is! Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed! Steve Simonson clears the flame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Good evening and welcome to episode 129 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast, recorded in front of a live YouTube studio audience. This past week, it's a familiar story in football and a familiar lineup on the pod. We've had less offers than a drunken Stoke fan from Michael Haefele, and you don't need to wait for a report from Sue Gray to realise that we've got 4 smashing whoppers on tonight's episode. We've got the only man who goes to Spain and never comes back with a suntan. It's Mr. Richard Kosmala. You okay there, mate?
I'm good, Matt. I don't think your audio is, though, mate. if unless it's just me. It's echoing, man.
Is it? Okay. Another man who avoids the sun at all costs. It's Dan Pozza Porritt. And a pleasure to have with us England youth keeper and Kirk Eaton's finest. It's Phil Senior. And bringing you rays of sunshine and nonsense, I'm Matt Shaw. If my audio's dodgy online, let me know and I'll see what I can do about it. But there's probably not a lot now that we're live. But it's usually fine when it comes through my laptop onto the live thing. It's just in this Wirecast rendezvous thing, and I'll be lodging a complaint on your behalf on Monday morning, Cos, one of you, either of you. Right, guys. So as always, this episode is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. If you use the code AHTTC10 at magicrockbrewing.com at the checkout, you'll get 10% off, courtesy of us, if you buy anything online. And also, happy birthday to my mate David Effie Taylor as well. So it's his birthday today. So we all wish Dave a happy birthday. Right, guys, let's get into the game. So we'll start with Huddersfield Town 1, Stoke City 1. I think from watching the game, Levi Colwell was a pretty bad miss. Pippa as well, another injury. Excellent first half from Town, I thought, guys. Josh Koroma was... Andy Hinchcliffe thought we should have been sent off every 5 minutes, apparently, from what people are saying on Sky. I still remember Andy Hinchcliffe sulking that time when Chris Lerver scored a penalty, and he was quite angry that a German had the audacity to score a penalty at Hillsborough. But guys, what did you make of that first half? Poz, what did you reckon to the first half in particular? I thought Town looked fantastic, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we were spot on, mate. I think we got at Stoke well, created a few chances. I think we got very lucky. I think this Stoke should definitely have had a penalty, and I think Koroma should have sort of definitely been sent off. Yeah, that tackle. I've seen a few people sort of say that he kind of just put his leg out rather than making a stamping movement towards it, which I do kind of get, but he's hitting the eye, ante, and he's very lucky there to get away with. Well, he didn't even get a yellow card, did he? In the end, I don't even know. Did he even give a free kick? I can't remember.
No, throwing.
Yeah, apart from that, it were go for a throw in. I thought so. Yeah, I thought we played really well, moved the ball well. Robert Thomas put a great cross in at 1-0, and Ward just sort of flashed it past the post. And if that goes in at 2-0, you're thinking it were home and dry, but very similar to Swansea and Coventry, as I'm sure we'll move on to the second half performance later, in the fact that we never really got going second half, and still got a foothold in the game. We didn't really do out to nullify that threat, and again it was just inevitable really that at some point they were going to score, and yeah, disappointing to come away with a draw, especially after going 1-0 up at home with a really good first half performance, but keeps the unbeaten run going. So yeah, I suppose depending on if your glass is half full or half empty, how you see things after that, I suppose.
Go on, Phil. You take over from there.
It was funny, wasn't it? It was such a strange game, and went in at half time, and everyone's talking about how well we played and the positives from the game. The Koroma tackle, it has drawn a bit. It's kind of divided a lot of people. I actually thought, and people can disagree, etc., but he hasn't gone towards the player. I thought it was going away from the player and hung his leg out. I don't think it was a sending off at all, but again, it just shows, doesn't it? Opinions that goes to VAR, and you've got someone sat behind the camera, and they've got to make a decision, and it's what's the interpretation of dangerous play. For me, that's not dangerous. That's going to maybe graze his leg. If you're running towards a player and you make contact with a knee, for me, that's dangerous. We got away with a number of poor passes in the first half, but again, we played well. It was a blatant penalty. It really was. I was sat there, and a couple of mates were sat at home watching the game, and I can agree with that. I couldn't believe he didn't give that. So I think we were a little bit lucky. But again, I thought we played well first half. It was exciting. It was a good game. Everybody was happy inside the stand, eating the pies, drinking the pints. Came out second half, it was totally different. And I think we mentioned last Sunday, being able to control the ball is really important when you're under the cosh a bit. And you could see they pressed a lot higher. They were a lot more energetic in the press, and we just couldn't keep hold of the ball. It's simple as that. Whether it was out wide, whether it was in the middle, whether it was Matty's decision to play out from the back for the goal, we just could not. 5-yard passes, basic passes, we couldn't keep hold of the ball, and it's a real concern really going forward.
Pause. You were having trouble hearing me a little bit, weren't you? I think the other guys are okay. Kosi's got COVID, so he's having trouble with his taste, smell, and hearing by the sounds of things. Am I all okay to you, mate? What did you make of the Koroma thing? I think all three of us here think he's a lucky boy and probably should have gone, but Gavin Ward was our pal on the night, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the podcast just to be the Swansea one, and then you can just edit over Swansea and just say Stoke, and then we could have just carried on talking about Anthony who can be wrapped up in about 10 minutes. You're incredible how it was saying, but the Koroma thing, I think, again, to me, and this is the worst thing about football. If that's in Spain, that guy rolls all the way to the halfway line into the barrier and stays down for 10 minutes and then gets the mind sent off. I think what kind of did the guy was, and because in a way I thought, ooh, is he putting it on a little bit? And obviously when you see the replay, it's a horrendous tackle, but the guy bounced up straight away, pretty much. And then it were then it kind of puts a debate into your head, thinking, was it all that bad? And obviously so many people I know were watching on telly because there was nothing else on Friday, and my phone was going nuts, so I knew pretty much then it should have been a red and that as well. But again, we have a famous song at town, don't we? We only get SHIT refs. Well, I don't think we can say that on Friday night, mate, because
all right, that guy.
Wouldn't have had a point in that as well. But you know what though, Matt? It sounds bad this because if there's any Stoke fans listening, they'll be like, ooh, why would you like to boot on the other foot? But for so long, we've just let teams, do what they want against us for 2-3 seasons now. Just, likes of Bakuna, just letting people waltz past players and stuff. We've only seen Johnny Ogg really get kind of stuck in. Now we've got a team who are kind of getting stuck in now, and I like to see it, mate. And obviously that overstepped the mark, but I kind of reflected on it the next day, thinking, yeah, Josh Koroma's not been, the greatest this season, but that's a guy who's up for it, man, and you can't beat that because we haven't had it for years.
Well, he came in for a lot of praise from Carlos. Did Josh Koroma as well, saying that his aggression was great during the game, his pressing was good, and he was pretty tired. So I think we've got to give Koroma some credit. I'm just reading the message in there, Poz. I can hear you that my audio is a bit dodgy in this rendezvous thing, but it seems to be okay online, so we'll have to plough forward. So I think what we probably talk about again, and we did against Swansea, we did against Coventry, we did against Bristol City, Peterborough, etc., is Town's penchant to drop off when protecting a 1-goal lead. Nottingham Forest as well, although that turned out quite nice against Nottingham Forest. I thought one of the major changes was Nick Powell coming on. I thought Stoke didn't really have any interest in that game until Nick Powell came on and him and Joe Allen took control of the midfield, to be honest. The dropping off really started around 65 minutes. At that point, I thought it was an open invitation to Stoke to come and get a point, and they took it. Like I mentioned, Swansea, Forest, Coventry, QPR, West Brom, Cardiff, Peterborough, so on. So I thought it was quite interesting with what Carlos said, and I know there's a lot of people who have problems understanding Carlos. His his thick Spanish accent. Kosi obviously speaks fluent Carlos, but his recent interviews have been worth the listen if you can, and it was really interesting to hear what he said in the game or after the game. And he mentions that we repeated the second half against Swansea and Coventry, so he's very full aware. And he felt that it was down to energy levels. And he said that because our energy levels dropped, the press wasn't as good up front. So, we saw that against Swansea where they played through the press at the top, didn't they, at the top of the pitch, where Flynn Downs brought it forward. And the same thing happened again. And he mentioned that again, the second half, we turned the ball over. We weren't turning the ball over higher up the pitch. And the transition was poor, which what Phil said as well, whereby we're poor in possession. And that is a real thing. He also seemed really sort of fed up of it happening. And so initially we thought this might be an instruction, but this really appears to be, definitely not an instruction. It's just really, I think, guys, for me, this is about Town's ability on the ball. We've got, a back four there who don't really, you wouldn't really call them silky. This is where we miss Levi Colwill, and I mentioned him at the start because his playing out from the back is really excellent for us. But I'm not sure Carlos can bemoan a high press when he throws Jordan Rhodes and Scott High on as the two attacking players either. I didn't really understand those subs. But for me, it's as much as anything, and I've got a couple of stats here, and Kosi, you've got some stats as well from Opta and whatnot, haven't you? But, you look at the passing, Toffolo 60.5% passing accuracy, Pearson 69, Sorba 60. And I know Sorba plays everything forward, so you expect his passing accuracy to be lower because he takes more risks than most people. But to me, it seems really obvious that the issue really is Town are just not comfortable enough on the ball to keep this up for 90 minutes. And I'll throw that to you, Poz. We've probably talked about this in great depth all the time, haven't we? But it seems to be, to me personally, the more I watch of it, the more I understand why Town have this issue. And for me, completely, it's in the middle of the park where we perhaps don't have that player who can transition us from the middle to the third.
No, it just needed a little bit more calm, didn't it? I think we were very panicky on the ball. Second half, obviously, when it's happened 2 or 3 times before, when you're playing football, it's always in the back of your mind, I suppose, that look, this is going. You feel like it's going a similar way to a previous game, and panic sets in, and a bit of nervousness picks in, and yeah, we are just lacking that. Everybody keeps using it as a comparison, but that Aaron Moy type of player that plays in that role, who could just get on ball and just take that extra touch and just pick that quality pass rather than everything just seemed to be at 100 mile an hour in second half, and no one really wanted to just put the foot on it and pick out a decent pass. It were oofed clear, time and time again. And I agree with you, Matt. I don't really see the point of the subs that Carlos made. It were just like for like. It were ward off, and in fact, it were like for like, but it actually made the actual setup worse because Rhodes ain't going to chase like Ward does. Holmes, he'll put a shift in, but Koroma were, playing really well and getting stuck in. All right, if he is tired, then fair enough. And then, Scott Eye comes on and basically just did what he did against Swansea. So I kind of...
I thought it was all right, Scott High, but it's not real. Right, he's not a 10, is he? He's not, especially with an immobile forward ahead of him. You bring a passing 10 on and Jordan Rhodes isn't going to go into the channels for him, is he? It just seemed strange. I thought John Russell would have been the natural sub there.
Yeah, I mean, even before the subs, I've sort of discussed on Twitter after the match, people saying, well, the bench is so weak, what do you expect him to do? But there's 2 or 3 options on that bench for me other than just going like for like. You could have brought Nabisar on, you could have gone, 3-4-3, you could have brought Russell on, for Sanani and just get a little bit more composure in there. So, all right, these players that are coming on, they're not of the quality that Stoke brought on, but there's still options there for Carlos. I would discuss it on there, and I think for me, a top manager or a manager that's looking to improve looks at his previous matches and he looks at what's happened and he already has a plan. It's written down. If we get to 60 minutes and this is the situation, this is what I'm going to do. If at half time they start getting on top, I'm going to make a sub on 55 and this is the sub that's going to sort it out. And he just doesn't seem to have that at the moment, Carlos. And it's kind of, let's carry on doing the same thing just with different players. And it just needed something more than that for me, a little bit more ingenuity. He stood on sideline waving players forward, and if players are dropping deep, then it needs more than just somebody stood at sideline kind of screaming to not do that. It needs a little bit more ingenuity, and once players go across that white line, I'm sure it happened to you, Phil, as a keeper as well, in situations where it were tight, players drop and drop and drop and drop, and you can scream at them all you want, mate, but they're not going to suddenly start thinking, oh, hang on a minute, my goalkeeper and my manager's telling me to be 10 yards further forward, I'll go 10 yards further forward. It's not about that. It gets in your head, and the more you're likely to concede, the more you drop, because you think the closer to the goal you are, the less likely you are. And actually, sometimes it's opposite. If we could have just played 10, 15 yards further forward across the pitch, that pushes Swansea back, it pushes Stoke back, it pushes everybody back 10 yards, and all of a sudden you've got a little bit more space. a little bit more time on ball, a little bit more, scope for playing different passes rather than just sort of backwards, sideways, and firing it at people. Because Stoke were up for it. They really wanted that point in that second half, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if their instruction were, look, half time, if they're not, out of sight or whatever, we've got a chance. And they seem to just raise their level in second half, and we just again just couldn't seem to do that. And yeah, I get the tiredness thing, but the championship, it's a big season. Everybody plays a lot of games. All right, we've probably got a smaller squad or a smaller quality squad than a lot in the similar position to us. But I think it was just frustrating that once again we'd gone in front. I think that's 16 points. I think I saw an article from Stephen Chicken saying now that we've thrown away from leading positions, which happens a lot in Championship. We've come from behind a couple of times. It's not just us that does it, but when you can see it, when you're in crowd, you just know it's coming. Like, everybody in that stadium just knew that was going to happen. And ironically, as of Swansea, when they got that goal, we suddenly got a foothold in game and started moving forward again. And it was like, why don't we just play like that from half time?
We didn't lose though, Pozza. And honestly, I were having running rows all the way up to the Vulcan on Friday night because, and I were hearing people. Honestly, I were a bit rude really because I was turning into conversations that have nothing to do with me. I were in Carlos's mouth. Carlos, I'm sorry, mate. So we played absolutely outstanding in these first half. So Carlos, right, lad, sack off what you've done there. Sack off what you've done.
Yeah.
What's still going forward? Let's just sit back. Let them bring all their quality off the bench. Let's just try and sit out for a 1-0 win. Bollocks! It's happened every week. I get it's frustrated. Carlos is negative. Shut up, man. Nick Powell, total class. The one thing I can maybe counter is that you're on about energy levels and that as well. They had a game on Tuesday night and they were garbage at Coventry. Talking to a couple of decent Stoke fans, there were actually a few there, believe it or not. But and they were saying they were awful. But then the quality that they've got is, I'm sorry to say, it's better than our bench. It's as simple as that. And I know what he's saying, Poz, but you're just shuffling Dexter's attack Rhodes. People like the Dwayne Holmes. It's not much. I don't think too. This is why hopefully we can get this guy in from Chelsea. We haven't got anything different, and you need that on the bench and that as well when a game's kind of fizzling out like that. But I refuse to believe that Carlos is just deciding to do that. I get it frustrating, and I'd take a positive, mate, because when they scored, I looked at our guys, hands on hips. Who was it? Were down on his knees, Matty Pearson, and I thought we're done here. We've lost, just like Swansea. There's only one winner here. And like you say, I just say positive that we didn't lose the game. We would have lost that a few years ago. So,
I agree with that, mate. I fully agree with that. I think the thing that was frustrating for me is that we didn't do anything different. Like you just say, shuffling Dexter on Titanic, just bringing on the Rhodes for Ward, and there were no ingenuity and this happened last week, so can I do something a little bit different this week to try and stop it? I mean, I'm not sitting here saying that if he'd have done that, we'd have definitely stopped it and we might have even lost. You know what I mean? But at least you could say, well, at least he tried to do X, Y, and Z. But I'm with you, mate. I think a lot of people are going a little bit too overboard. And as you say, there's no way that after that first half that he just went, stop doing that. Sometimes the situation is in games and, it is what it is. But
the trouble is, Poz, people are ramming that stat down the throat about games when we bomb points. Why not say we're 10 unbeaten? Competitions, why not say that? All we're hearing is we've bombed this, bombed that. So what? Every team can say that. I just kind of think we showed a lot of character there because we were absolutely goosed. We ended up getting a point. I get it, we're like the other games, but honestly, there's so much negativity, I think, and they don't need to be in that as well. It's teams that give the right arm to be where we are and that as well. I just don't get it. I get it's frustrating, but I refuse to believe Carlos goes in that dressing room at half-time and say, right, guys, forget all that. Let's just sit back.
It's that immediate reaction, isn't it? You've got the immediateness of it. And, I'd imagine a lot of these people that wake up on Saturday morning and take a step back and look at the overall picture and say, do you know what, overall, yeah, I'm more than happy because that's how you see it. But I think it's just in that initial 5, 10, 15 minutes after the match. Because if we'd have done this podcast 10 minutes after the match, I'd have been ranting and raving a hell of a lot more than maybe, what I am now. But, like you say, you take a step back, look where we are in league and, you can't say that he's not doing a good job. It's just that, constructive criticism and could maybe do a little bit better in certain situations. But
sorry,
it is what it is.
I'll let Phil go in a minute. But what I'd say, if he had a decent bench, mate, I could kind of get it. But I looked at that and you haven't got. Maybe Holmes could do something a little bit different. But apart from that, I just think there's nobody really doing anything different.
I think it was for me personally, it was more. Sorry, Phil.
Shape, wasn't it?
But for me,
I'm enjoying listening.
It was do you know what? It was a lack of. Can we set up a little bit different to try and stop this happening, rather than just bringing players on and hoping that playing the same formation with different players is going to suddenly work. And for me personally, that's the sort of most frustrating thing.
I agree with both of you. To be fair, I think Kosi, nail on the head. Like, can you imagine the gaffer going in and saying those words, right, we're going to sit in? And can you imagine as a player actually trying to do that? Because it's really hard to do it. And I was sat at the game watching it, and there were loads of people around us. This one fella sat down my aisle. I hope he's listening to this. He won't be. Absolutely deluded. Effing, jeffing, see you next Tuesday. This kid sat behind him, slating every single one of the players, like horrendously. Every time something happened, it was that such negativity. And yes, we were under the cosh a little bit because we weren't keeping hold of the ball, as simple as that. Because we weren't keeping hold of the ball. And Pozza, I totally agree with you. Why Dwayne Holmes went and played out wide instead of playing in that hole? Because he gets hold of the ball and tries to keep hold of it and tries to drive forward in those. I thought Scott High had an absolute nightmare in the midfield. And I've been an advocate of him. I think he's decent in that line midfield role. But we just couldn't keep hold of the ball. And it's, yes, it's a 1-1. And because I agree, it's a point. Simple as that, it's a point. Look, think about where we were at the start of the season, where we thought we would be. Right, it's a point. So if it means we're going to go away from home and win all those games, then let's do that. And then if we're digging at home, then we're digging at home. Because
if you're pricing that game up now at my work, when Swansea equalised, unfortunately, I know football don't work like that. Who would you put as favourite to win that game, mate?
Yeah, nails, 100%. 100%.
I'm not saying take a point or what have you, but it's just, and it's weird, because like you said, we kind of had a second win, and you're thinking maybe we could do what we did against Blackburn and come back. But it's, I think if Carlo, I keep hearing Carlo's inexperience and this and that, but is it really? But I know it keeps happening a lot. I'm not a great tactical.
That's why I said, mate, because that's why I said, listen, people should listen to his post-match interview if they can get through it, because it's actually got some really good information there as to why this has happened and what, and the reasons behind it. And he explains it really well. And he explains, the difficulty with, the press up front and them playing through it and the, lacking the ability to hold the ball in midfield. And, it's all the things that we see, and it's, it just highlights it that it's not an instruction. And, so
what though, Matt?
That's it.
But it's like Poz said though, if we're struggling to keep all of the ball, which we clearly were all over the pitch, we do need to be able to mix it up and change it, and that's the key thing. And Jordan Rhodes for me at the moment is looking strong. He grafts hard up top. The balls go up to him. It's always a challenge with the centre half. Surely there's a way of his playing now to bring him more into the game.
He's good at things though,
running
Phil.
Off him, etc.
He's good at certain things though, Phil. But I'm not sure I'd want Rhodes to be the sole striker up there pressing the defense.
No. But what I'm saying is, if to change the game, if you're going to bring him on, because it's no point bringing him on and carrying on playing the way we're playing, because it's pointless. It's not his game. But
stick him up there with someone.
Plan B. It's got to be clear.
Fraser Campbell, if you
exactly.
Campbell,
Campbell, Kosi will be really happy if Campbell's back. So
you know what worse as a fan though. There's nothing. It's brilliant when you scored it, but when they've hit the post, you're just thinking, can we get away with it? Come on.
Yeah.
And then Lewis blocked it as well, didn't
he? Yeah. As an away fan, you're just losing your shit. You're going absolute, and they did obviously. We'll talk about that later. But I just, in a way, you've got to kind of begin begrudging. That's why we football. That's why we like to come in the grounds, because yes, and it finished to fair.
Strange celebration, wasn't it, to come and shush Pozza? But apart from that, what did you do, Poz? What did you do?
I don't know. I never said out to him.
Just waved flag in his face.
Just came over, didn't it? Give me some.
I was like, what?
Shall we read some comments out from YouTube? So thanks to the 34 people watching online. Let me drag this across, and we will hear from. Let's have a look. So Mark Harrison says yes. Koroma was looking. If Hinchcliffe had his way, he'd be locked up by now. I think that's true. Bez5678 says, I thought we were superb first half, then thought we looked knackered second. And yes, we got away with a couple of decisions, but we've had plenty against us, so tough on Stoke. Yeah, I was going to say, over the last couple of years, some of the refereeing decisions we've had against us have been absolutely horrendous. But, it's nice that we got one for once. Adam Cottrell says, we got lucky with the referee decisions first half, but we looked decent. Second half was terrible. Tom says, lads ran out of steam after a high press first half, needed to get subs on earlier. That was another point I was going to make, Poz, as well, was that, in midfield, we've got a warrior in Johnny Hogg, who didn't have the greatest game, and Lewis O'Brien drives forward with the ball. We love both those players, don't we? But it just kind of sometimes lacks someone who has the ability to speed up and slow down the tempo, because there's at certain times where Town really, we're great going forward quick, And then sometimes when we're up against it, we just need that ability for someone just to turn a different direction and take the sting out. You know, like we keep saying, like Aaron Moy.
Aaron Moy, isn't it? It's that role.
Okay, even Carol Eiting. Carol Eiting did it to bits as well. So.
Yeah, Eiting, yeah.
I can't even think. Chris Marsden. There's not had many of them, have we, done in the past? But anyway, let's go back to the comments. Right, so that was Adam Cottrell. Adam Cottrell says Stoke played Tuesday and Friday, so I think the energy levels is a poor excuse. I think Stoke made 6 or 7 changes though, didn't they? During, so it wasn't the same side, I don't think, but it's a fair comment from Adam. Cy Daly. I think this is one of your mates, isn't it, Phil? Cy Daly. Or he was.
Yeah, what's he saying? Yeah.
Nah, it's just play. It was also a predictable second half. I text Phil on 65 minutes saying it was Swansea all over again. I hope you called him a shithouse as well, Si. I can't help think it's something in the players' heads as opposed to anything tactical. Bez 5678 says I feel like 5678 motorway after that. Can't see the point of Rhodes coming on to play alone up front. He's a 2 up top player. Never was any good at his role. He's been asked to play. Richard Hookie says spot on, Kosi. James Johnson says,
Phil, just before, I'm just watching the game. Sorry, Phil, I'm just watching the game at background, right? And the keeper's made a brilliant save from a penalty, and he's off his line, and VAR's made him take it again, and he scored. Be honest, mate, when you were playing, would you have struggled to stay in the line? I think it's
nailed on. It's an absolute joke. Goalkeepers step forward to dive. You talk to dive forward. You don't dive backwards, sideways. You dive forward. And your first step is naturally. So what they're trying to say is now you've got to start behind the line, step onto the line, and make your save. It's an absolute joke.
Well said,
mate. Would it a lot or just a little bit?
Quite a bit, to be fair, mate. But he's only a young guy. But sorry, Matt, for totally.
It's his own fault.
Oh, mate, I could talk about goalkeeping all night. It's great. If I could do a goalkeeping pod with Phil.
You know what, though? I suppose it's maybe an agate for another day. But VAR's there on Friday night. Koroma's off. They get a penalty.
Definitely.
That's one for another day, innit? But it just shows the difference. Even at that level, second division Spanish, that it comes in a championship, you're going to be getting a different table, really.
Stepping forward also narrows the angle, by the way, and makes the goal look smaller. That's another psychological point. But anyway, right. So James Johnson says, I think if we think back to August, this would have been a good point at home. With the free transfer policy we currently have, yes, it was frustrating. On paper, Stoke are underperforming. We didn't lose. I think that's a good point. Kosi said, Nick Powell, absolute class, isn't he? And he's just come back from injury, and he's a class player. Dag Barnett says the reason why there is negativity is because we have struggled for 3 seasons. People are desperate for better. I think I get that as well. People are still a bit frustrated over the last 3 years, and it sort of spills out when something. That was the thing with Carlos, wasn't it? When every time we lose a game, everyone thinks, "Oh no, we're going to lose for 5 months solid now," and I think it's just ingrained a bit in some town fans. But I think it's getting better with some people. I think it'll get there eventually. I'm sure it will. Andy Dworski says, pulling up trees with limited resources. Amazing we are still punching. Love to see it. Dag Barnett also says, I think we are doing so much better than I expected, but the squad is what it is. If we could add quality, perhaps we could have a different option and dynamic. One better player could lift everything. And then Oliver Bell says, just thinking back to when Hoggy was out and we had High-in alongside O'Brien, did we have a bit more fluidity on the ball? It's not a popular opinion, is that, Oliver? But I think we did. Off the ball, we probably weren't as good, but on the ball, we were a little bit better. There's a few instances last night where Hogg tried to hit like a 30-yard diagonal to Sorba, and there were three of them, and he mishit all 3. And that's the exact ball that Scott High's been hitting to Sorba, where we've scored goals from against Bristol City. I think we scored 2 or 3 goals from that ball. But what Jonathan Hogg doesn't do there, he makes up for it. When the opposition are in our half. So. Horses for cosses. Right, guys, I think we need to discuss that football pillockry is on the rise, is it not? So when Stoke scored, I looked across and I saw some dickhead from Stoke in a white coat just run straight over to the Huddersfield fans and swing a punch over the top of a policeman at someone in the crowd. It was an absolute disgrace from a complete pillock from Stoke. White coat, on, probably needed a straight white coat as well. And the interesting thing is there's a TikTok. I don't have TikTok, but someone sent me the link. I just have to get that in there because TikTok's a bit weird for people my age. And and he's getting escorted out by police, and one of his own fans walks up and smacks him. So so he got his comeuppance in the end. Really bizarre thing, but this is not unique, is it, Poz? Cause you guys sit in that stand. Bottles, Huddersfield fans are innocent from what I read. Bottles constantly go over. Blackpool was another one where there was something. Coventry, I think there was a bit of a moan. But it's not just at Huddersfield. It's all over the country, isn't it? We've seen, down the road from where I live, those lot. doing some pretty dodgy things, racism, throwing bottles at players, etc., etc. And it's not confined to West Yorkshire. It's happening all over. It just feels like people have been locked up for 12 months, COVID, and now I'm going to get this all out, and I'm going to be a complete dickhead when I can be, and it's sort of frustrating to see, really. Poz, I know you don't throw bottles across, but it's a weird concept to me, is all this, because I like to go watch the football, have a good, have a drink or not, and I don't really subscribe to all the crowd. I know some people love it and thrive off it, and it's just never interested me. I don't have a clue what's going on, mate.
Yeah, I'm too tight to pay $2.50 for a drink and throw it at someone. Bloody hell.
You'll be recycling the plastic, trying to get 10p back or something.
I'll be bringing it back like an old Ben Shaw's, mate, trying to get it.
Exactly.
No, I think you're right, Matt. I think the biggest problem is there. Obviously we get in early to set up and stuff like that. We were talking to representatives from the club, and it has been noted that obviously this year there's been a lot more trouble than there has in previous seasons. And from being in there, it does tend to stem from the away fans. Obviously, I'm not saying that every single town fan in there is innocent, but it does seem to start coming across to us before it starts coming back. I think one of the biggest issue is I think the stewarding in there this season. I don't know if it's a new company or different people, but we've continually worked with stewards up until this season. Obviously, it's like with John Robinson, safety, etc., etc. We've had obviously a lot of dialogue over the last few years with stewards and stuff, and it just seems to be a little bit of shift in attitude this season. Certainly, on more than one occasion, I've witnessed stewards sort of almost goading fans. Stewards aren't there to be abused. They're there to do a job, and fans shouldn't be saying FY, X, Y, and Z to them and calling them names under the sun. But this season, especially, stewards seem to be coming back, sort of almost offering out fans for fights and stuff like that, which is obviously not really helping the situation. I spoke to the main guy in there after the match on Friday night as we were tagging.
Is it still Big Andy? Is he still there?
No, it's like a third party company now that do it. And he was sort of saying, he understood what I was saying and stuff like that, but to give a bit of context into stewarding and stuff like that, for those that maybe don't know, that stewards have no power and no authority to walk in and throw somebody out. They have to have police presence to do that, because if not, it could be classed as assault, and there's not enough police officers there to help them. And a lot of the times the police are there gathering evidence rather than wanting to physically remove someone, so they'll stand and film it for an hour. Because then they'll put a portfolio together in 6 months to get somebody banned. So there's various other things going in there, but I do think it does need to be looked at. And the club were talking about on Friday night, because the new Stoke weren't bringing a full allocation, to keep that little small block next to barrier free, and that was the instruction. But if 40, 50 burly men start charging at a section like that and it's empty, it is hard to stop it. What do you do without? You put some net in there, but then you're reducing ticket allocations, so you're losing out on revenue. And I don't know. I agree with you, Matt. I think after COVID, I think everyone's just pent up aggression or whatever, and they're just out for whatever release they can get. And a few beers Friday night, but it's not unique to that match. It has been going on.
Probably not just beer.
It's not nice, if you want to go and have a scrap at football, that's your prerogative. I like a bit of needle, I like a bit of tension, I like a bit of atmosphere, and
Yeah, to and fro. It's decent. It makes for an atmosphere, don't it? Yeah.
There's a line, isn't there? And once that line gets crossed, it all becomes a bit silly, because innocent people start getting hurt. If you just launch a bottle into a crowd, it could hit someone who's totally innocent. There's a lot of kids that go in there. I take my kids and stuff like that, and I don't want them seeing stuff like that and maybe getting put off by it and not wanting to go anymore. So I think the club need to work with the stewarding people first and foremost, and get a grip. And if they have to do stupid stuff like stop selling drinks in there or whatever, that's what they'll have to do to sort it out. But obviously, being involved in what I'm involved in, a lot of people come to us and say, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. Realistically, what can we do? We can't do all. We're just fans like anybody else in there. It's up to the club to sort it out. And if it is predominantly away fans that are starting the trouble, then they need to address that, and it needs to be looked at.
I just want to point out as well, when I said football pillockry with Stoke fans, I just want to point out it looked to be about 50 out of 1,500 who were, acting idiots. So it's obviously not all Stoke fans, and a tiny minority. Usually Stoke fans I find are pretty decent, sort of back and forth and stuff. So a little bit decent disappointing. But Kosi, you take over from there, mate.
Yeah, worrying times for me, mate. I think we're going to lose that South Stand very soon because the West Brom trouble were horrendous. Say in the car park, pushed under the carpet. I spoke to Robin Kennedale about it. They put some lighting out there. There were people getting kicked and punched in front of the kids. Crap conduct. Didn't go to Blackpool, but I talked to a couple of people who were sick of getting hit by coins. Both sides. Bollocks. Why have we seen that? And then, the biggest problem I thought on Friday night when the national coverage got, it looked ugly. I kind of, with you put at the front and that as well, but I had a couple of people say to me, I'm sick, went away team scoring at Huddersfield, there's people running on the pitch and just being managed to kind of run back off it. Apparently that happens every time someone scores a goal against us and that as well, but no surprise, Pozza, if what you're saying there is obviously spot on information. The police are not there, and it's just, I don't think it's unique to Huddersfield. I'm reading a lot of pieces this week about, so many games, so many places. I mean, Christ, who'd have thought that Wickham MK Dons would be a source for the game being stopped and abused like that? And this is where we're in. But I obviously it's a bigger picture and another argument for another day. But I'm really worried Mr. Robinson's going to say, right, guys, I'm sorry, but it's adios, mate. You're back in the North Stand lower, away from the trouble. Then obviously, you're not going to get that interaction. The one thing that always surprised me, but I get that's just football culture. But I watched Birmingham Scotland when that Lyle Taylor scored, and their fans were going absolutely nuts towards their player and like kind of their end. But when we score, so many of our fans just like want to seem to just charge towards that barrier. But I get, maybe I'm just being a bit picky and everyone does that. But the last thing I want to do is just kind of go towards theirs. But I suppose everyone's sense different. But yeah,
charge anyway, mate.
It is what it is. It's been documented there, Paul. But I'm just very worried, kind of moving forward that. Because I think the fact that we're next to the away fans and we're taking it in the pocket, there's no doubt in my mind that we are. That other teams can fill these ends, no problem at all. So it's been done for our benefit, and it's difficult, isn't it? Because you're getting hit by something, whether it's a fist or a coin, and natural reaction is to want to give it back and that as well. And I just don't want to lose everything for like what Scoffer, bless his soul, helped set up, at the start, obviously with you guys, Poz, and it's really difficult because I don't know what you can do. Yeah, you can put an appeal out on your social media. Yeah, the club can put this and that out, but I think the problem is now people know they can throw stuff, do stuff, and no one gives a shit, and no one's getting caught. And I'll come up with the incident later on, probably soon, about the guy who collapsed, and that's just a great example there. We've got stewards in there now who just, what are they there for? I know it's like the minimum they should be doing is kind of knowing who's to come and to get help, whether it be a police for some fights or someone who's collapsed. You didn't see that on Friday night, but it's been brewing and. It's depressing because the last thing I want to be is in that North Stand, mate, away from the away fans. But that's happening. I'm telling you, that more like this, and we'll be back there very soon.
Well, let's hope not. Phil, sorry, I'd muted you during that thing. There's a little bit of feedback coming from your thing, so I'll let you do that because if you start talking, nothing will come out. I think we'll move on to Phil. Obviously, you do you go in the South Stand as well, Phil, when you go or? Go say you probably
no in the car stand, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll see it from a different vantage point as well, won't you? So it's worrying
interesting. It's just interesting listening to some of the comments because I mentioned off air before the first thing I actually saw in the game. I was there about an hour before the game, getting my pint, sitting in my nice cosy little corner out of the way of all the trouble. We're two town fans actually running and goading Stoke fans who were minding their own business. And this was before the game. They were hand signals, all sorts. Two little kids, really. Probably 17, well, I don't know, 16, 20 odd plus or something. Running over to the Stoke fans and giving it Billy Biggin. So you're looking at both sides, really. You never really see town fans running towards oppositions, etc. But there's still elements of people who want to go in there, and I don't think they want to cause trouble. I just think they want to kind of goad the opposition, and I don't mind that, to be honest. I think, like you guys have said, that's part of football. You give a little bit, you take a little bit, don't you?
Yeah.
But it is worrying because you can see from where we are, you can see the bottles flying, and that is the worry because there's a lot of Pozza's young lads in there. He's loving it. I bet he's having a great time, stood up front singing, blue and white, loving it, and that's what you want to see. And I just worry that there's a lot. My little boy wants to go in the cowshed, like he's sat all the way over side and he's singing his heart out by himself, and him and his mate were bouncing up and down singing. Lewis, all that kind, and he's dying to go in there. But at the moment, he's 9-year-old, and I know there's quite a few young, but I don't want to take him in at the moment because it's just I don't know. It's just the atmosphere is just a little bit. You go to away games, it's a nightmare sometimes. Understand at away games, lads being rowdy, jumping on shoulders, all that kind of stuff. And it's football, so I understand that. But there's got to be a little bit of common sense at times. But I don't know. Like you've just said, it happens everywhere. It happens all around country. So I don't think it's just Huddersfield. It definitely isn't just Huddersfield, because I know these clubs that are 10 times worse. But yeah, I think, I just hope that it's not a sport, because you guys have done a real job in making that end. And sometimes I'm quite negative in terms of the noise that comes out there. I thought Friday night they were decent. I thought they were really good. I thought it was a really good atmosphere. I thought it were, Stoke obviously contributed to it. You guys did as well, and that's what you want to see, really. So it would be a shame if anything has to change.
The guy who collapsed was a big issue, and I were right near it. I thought it was an absolute disgrace how it was handled by the stewards.
Just before we go into that, Kos, I don't know his name, but I think all of us would wish him well. Apparently he's come through okay. But yeah, if from all of us, if you do listen to this, we wish you the best and hope that you recover well. And Kosi, you can get onto it. There was someone at the cinema.
An air ambulance.
So I sit Riverside, and we could hear the helicopter behind us. And it sounds really silly to say this, but a mate of mine, initially you're like, a mate of mine made a joke, "Oh, the new owner's here," and then then you start thinking, "Oh, it's Yorkshire Air Ambulance." And then your mood hits a bit. But apparently, someone at the cinema also had an issue, and the Yorkshire Air Ambulance landed in the car park behind. So for both people, for both incidents, we wish you all the best.
The thing is, though, Matt, we've seen, obviously, bless him, the guy who's passed away at Fulham, but this is happening more and more, and I'll let everyone else, kind of wonder why that is, but that doesn't matter, really. But the least you expect when you go in the ground, if you fall over, collapse and stuff, is like care, and there were care from the fans, but there was no one there for 8 minutes. It was an absolute disgrace, mate. The guy kind of visibly would go in, and his face would go in, and it was really worrying. And, for 8 minutes, people, I think the problem is, come on, there's people waving their arms and shouting and screaming and stuff like that as well. And it's hard for anyone really to see at the bottom. But the stewards there are there at the back, and it's they were just stood there watching. And it's people shouting, do something and that as well. And it took about 7 minutes for them, some ambulance people, to come up the steps and stuff like that as well. And it's just it just goes back to what you were saying there, Poz. It's a duty of care, mate. And again, it's just, I think standards have dropped. We're not saying that maybe the fan base for some of the activities, but, just the stewarding and that as well. And it's so disappointing, really. There's no point kind of keep going on about it. It's just kind of, can we learn some lessons from it and that as well? But if you guys have not got that connection with the kind of the stewards, I just think that's always the thing that's been good in the kind of the development of that South Stand. You've had that interaction. Even John Robinson, who's had there's so many people who not liked him over the years, but he's kind of had that interaction with you, and it's got better. But I don't know. I just hope the club are going to put something out this week about these incidents, and let's kind of learn. How can we do better as a club and as a fan base and as a stewards, really, or police and stuff like that as well, because I think that's been coming that on Friday, mate. And yeah, maybe a bit dramatic for me, but I think we need to do something.
Chris, apparently, was his name. I've seen on Down at the Max somewhere. So, Chris, if you do listen to this, then all of us will wish you the very best in your recovery. All the best, mate, on that one. Right, so I've put the question out there in the group chat. So let's see what people have been saying. So James Johnson says, Poz, you do a great job gearing up the fans to sing, but it seems to be getting more people in the stand looking for a fight. We aren't innocent, but the stewards are abysmal. I think you sort of covered that off, didn't you? Bez says, I grew up through the old hooligan days, and it's awful to see it rearing its ugly head again. It's got to be stamped on. Cameron Littlewood says, them stewards have been awful the last 2 home games. James Johnson says, I think the company was Carlisle stewards, did nothing right, and he mentions the fan as well. James also says best wishes to the guy as well. Andy K, the K maker, says our first time in there this season seems to be a lot of antagonism both ways, mainly young lads with their first beers inside them. Pointless, childish part of the banter culture. Puerile. Andy's not a fan. Neither are none of us, to be fair. Niall Fayer says Phil looks to have aged ever so more since coming onto this pod. Is this one of your mates, Phil, coming in to wind you up? You're on mute, by the way.
Tell him we do one. Message him back. Tell him we do one.
He can hear you. It's fine. So
yeah,
there you go.
Can.
There you go. Now
I'll do one.
He's got a point. Right, Max says I think they might need to put some netting in the small block in the away end, so when away teams that don't fill their allocation can't just charge at the south stand. It'll end up like ice hockey, won't it, with a screen or something daft like that. Yeah, and Adam Cottrell says he makes a full recovery as well, and that goes to the
Tell you what,
personally.
Matt, another big test on Wednesday. Derby sold out today. They'll come. They'll fill their allocation. They'll be giving it large over that barrier. Barnsley, God, I don't know how many they'll bring, to be honest. They're on a shocker, aren't they? But it's going to be a big test for team fans and everyone on Wednesday night. It's going to be really interesting. We just want that atmosphere really good, but I just don't want to get hit by coins.
Yeah, but Pozza will be pocketing them after they bounced off your head.
Yeah. Throw pound coins at me, lads. Bring them.
Yeah, he sat there with his cap, it's just like Pozza. Oh dear. Do you know what? While I'm doing that, I forgot. I didn't blow the conch, did I, for Josh Koroma's goal? But never mind. The moment's gone. Right. So I had a hot take that I wanted to put in here, but I don't think I'm really going to bother it. I was going to bring a hot take feature in, and I was going to say that part of our problem is Lewis O'Brien. And yes, I did say that part of our problem is Lewis O'Brien. But let me explain, because I'm not saying Lewis O'Brien's rubbish. But just from watching Town, I think Lewis is a very unique midfielder in his skill set to what we have. He's a box-to-box carrying midfielder, and he is our best player. And there's no bones about it for me. The best player that we own. And I just kind of look at him and think, part of our issue in midfield is that in a midfield too, it's important to get the right blend, the right partner. And we've covered this off already, and that they're tricky to find. And the little bit that I was going to say is that, Hoggy, has his pros in there, but I think the most suited player that we've got in the blend would be Alex Vallejo. That complements Lewis better. Scott High, I like Phil. I like Scott High, but I think he's just a little bit early in his development to play that, isn't he, as much as us? But for me, if you had someone like a Tom Huddleston type, not saying Tom Huddleston because he's as old as us on this podcast now, but if that's the sort of deep lying playmaker who can defend a bit, that for me would get the best out of Lewis O'Brien in the engine room. But anyway, that was my hot take, which wasn't really necessary. But what is necessary is Poz. You were the roving reporter today, weren't you, at Huddersfield Town Women, who played at the stadium. It's great to see the ladies have a game down at the stadium. They played Everton, and I looked at Everton's side, and they've got Tony Duggan up front, they've got Isabel Christensen, they've got Scandinavian, French internationals. This is a hell of a team that Everton brought to Huddersfield. No bones about it. And Poz, you went to watch it. I would have gone if the kickoff was slightly later, so apologies. But they put a good show up, didn't they?
Yeah, people who don't watch the women's game often. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be some sort of expert, because I'm not. But the gulf in quality there today was insane. I think people probably see a bit about Town ladies women team on social media, and they don't really sort of appreciate the level that they are compared to an Everton. It were a phenomenal difference, to be fair. Obviously, Everton, Women's Super League, full-time. Town, I think they're playing Northern Premier League, if I remember rightly. Obviously, part-time amateurs. So the gulf in class were there for all to see, to be fair, just physically, and the way that Everton moved the ball around were far superior to Town. But they put in a good shift. Just never stopped running. Top effort from them. I think being really critical, they could have held onto the ball a little bit more. They were just sort of pumping it long and hoping somebody could get in behind, which were never really going to happen. It was quite obvious after about 10-15 minutes that the physicality and fitness levels of Everton would have seen them through regardless. But yeah, they were just short of 1,200 down there, which were good. So
record attendance.
Quite a lot of record attendance for the ladies, and excellent experience for them to play in front of such a crowd, and in the stadium and stuff. And it's funny because I was chatting before to people who I went with, and I said, yeah, I get why they've moved it to the stadium, because it's a really good sort of publicity thing, get more people in. And a part of me just thought, though, if they played at the usual home ground, would it have benefited? Would they have probably lost anyway, maybe? But, you see these big Premier League clubs going to lower league opposition, and I think Man United went to Burton once, and, I think Burton got a draw out of it just because they were at their home ground. And, John Smith, it's a nice, perfect pitch. It's a big pitch, and Everton probably a lot more used to that sort of setup than Town. And a part of me thinks that if they'd have played it up at Stars Hall, where they usually play, they might have had a bit more of a chance of creating an upset. But yeah, taking nothing away. like I say, the effort, the commitment were there for all to see. And if a few people that went down today get girls involved in football, then great stuff, because I think it's on the rise, like it or not. A lot of people are very critical of it, but again, I think they've got to take a step back and don't compare it to the men's game, because it is totally different. It's a bit slower. Technically, Everton really, really good technically. Scored I think the third goal was a cracking goal, and if Barcelona score that goal, it's all over news saying what a great goal it was. But if you're going to go watch it, get your head down, but just go with maybe a little bit less expectation than expecting it to be like the men's game, because it's not.
Always amuses me. Pos does that. Always amuses me when people. I always think, do they go watch the kids under 8 game and sit there going, bloody hell, Cristiano Ronaldo would have buried that. What's he playing at? You know what I mean? It's just, it's a silly comparison that people make. No one goes to watch Town, do they really? And sort of say, well, Man United would do this and that. No one does that. So why do they do it to the women's game? Knock it off.
No, it's an easy thing to have a pop at it, or look at the state of them, and they're not as good as men, but there's reasons for that, isn't there, which we won't go into today, because I won't anyway, because I'm no expert. But you wouldn't criticise an 100-metre Olympic sprinter female because she's not as fast as Usain Bolt, would you? You'd say she's really fast for her class, and that's why we've got to take it.
Pos, were there anyone from the Everton team that could slot into our midfield?
Tony Duggan did a good job when she came on, mate.
She's decent, isn't she?
She could play that number 10 role for us. Yeah, like I say, Everton played some lovely football. If you were just going down to watch it as a pure technical spectacle, then you'd come away saying that Everton were, really, really well. They are really, really good at it. But yeah, it were a good run out. I'm sure the lasses that played got a really good experience from it, and they'll treasure. I never played on in a stadium in front of 1,200 people, so that's off to them.
Good.
Play to them.
But I've got one for you. So I went to watch Witten Albion and Scarborough yesterday. Apologies for that. But
I've seen that down at Witten as well.
Yeah, Dean Saunders was there, mate. He's a cracking guy. I know he's got Bradford City in him, but we'll forgive him. But I suppose my question, Potts, it gives me, when I'm watching quite a lot of non-league football, and you watch it as well, and I think you'll be the Phil, it puts stuff in perspective for me for Town. And I get there's some people that are just Huddersfield Town and nothing else, probably not even Premier League football on telly, and it's like there. But I don't know, I just kind of appreciate more what we've got now in this championship. Like maybe, we're up there and blah blah blah. But because when I go watch there, I just see like, I think Scarborough brought about 100 fans and Witten and they 400 people there. But the passion there, they were proper football people. They're not like half Scarborough and half Arsenal or what have you. They're or Witten and Man City. They might be, but I don't know. It just makes me think different about football now. And I don't. Do you know what I'm trying to say, mate? And that as well. I think everyone looks at stuff different, but I come away with that thinking that's refreshing. You're like,
if anyone's not been to watch a non-league game, you need to go and watch it because they are entertaining. And like you say, there's loads of passion, players, etc. We're talking about that Josh Koroma tackle. If that had happened non-league, that lad would have got up and carried on playing. And not one thing would have been said. Do you know what I mean? It would have. There was a lad who played with us at Halifax called Tom Baker, and he used to get smashed all over the pitch. Smashed all over the pitch, and he got up from every single tackle, even if it were like a leg-breaking challenge. He got up and carried on playing. It is a totally different. Like you say, it does open your eyes to kind of a different experience.
Doing well, Halifax, Phil. Might be above Bradford City next year. Who knows?
Yeah, they do. The Halifax, they've got the fan base there. It's a decent club. It's it's not a bad setup at all. I think they're full time now, but they've just got to. For me, it's been the same old. They've just got to pump a little bit more money in and give it a real good go one season. For me, they really do because they'll get up there at some point. But
class manager. But we'll move on.
Tell you what, Phil. There were but just going to Halifax Bournemouth game, there were a brilliant tribute for.
Sinnott, yeah.
Yeah, Gordon Sinnott before the game, and obviously that's kind of gone by again 2 years, and it was touching to see that really, and the game stopped, and I love stuff like that, man. Yeah. People should never forget. It happens a lot in Spain, like these players who passed away with heart attacks, but the 17 minutes fans will do it year in game out. I love a bit of respect, and
I'm glad they did that because we had a lad who played for Halifax for a long time. He died recently, only young. Mid-30s, and we tried getting a game on at the ground as a kind of memorial, trying to get as many people as we could to raise funds for his kids, and they wouldn't do it. We had to go and play the game at Chorley instead. So I'm glad they did something for Jordan because bit of a head loss at one point for us as a group of players that they didn't support that for James Dean. But yeah, brilliant to see, isn't it, really? And like I say, looking at social media, there's a lot of people that have commented on the anniversary kind of thing, and look what they're doing with it now, like Steady and the boys, and that they're really pushing the foundation. It's class to see, really. It really is. Yeah, so pleased for everybody involved, really.
Yeah, good lads. Just to bookend the women's game as well. I want to mention that the HTSA do a GoFundMe for the women's. The women's, obviously have to pay for their own stuff to play. They don't get paid like the Everton players do. They're not professional. If you check out the HTSA website and Twitter, and I'll post a link in the comments as well. If you'd like to contribute to the women's, just so they can, get games on, then please do so.
Just to get that in, Matt, I know they do play sponsorship as well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
The season, there is various players available. So if anybody is wanting to support it, then get in contact with. I'm sure if you do it through Twitter or whatever, they'll be more than happy to.
Absolutely. Right. So we'll go into the final topic now, which is the transfer window. We're seeing a little bit happen now, aren't we, in the transfer window? Things are starting to open up at Huddersfield Town. Ben Jackson has joined Meepo and Adam Clayton at Doncaster. So best of luck to Ben Jackson. I think that's a progressive move for him. He went to Bolton last year at League Two. A little bit in and out, but I think he finished quite strongly there. Ben, when I see him play, always looks a bit too good for them, because he's seen him play for the B team as well. Always looks a bit too good for the B team, but not quite good enough for the first team. So this is a really good chance to bridge that gap from the B team to Huddersfield. So a good move, and best of luck to Ben. Who else has gone out? Someone else has gone out, I think, haven't they? Reece Brown is about to apparently go to Peterborough. Reece Brown's played a massive amount. He's played 77 minutes for Huddersfield Town in 2.5 years. As Reece Brown, and no league minutes either. He's possibly due to go to Peterborough. Juninho Bacuna moved to Birmingham, didn't he? I think Huddersfield had a sell-on clause with that, so it wasn't all bad, but a really strange move. And also, it's probably worth pointing out that Jamal Blackman, we mentioned last week, is training with us, but he doesn't need to sign by Monday because he's a free agent, so Huddersfield can pick him up at any point over the next 2 or 3 weeks as well.
Have we got Birmingham to play yet again?
Sorry?
Yeah, not far off, mate.
He's going to have an absolute world,
Yeah. Hopefully, he gets sent off week before, Phil.
Yeah.
Right, so there's 2 players that Huddersfield Town have been strongly linked with, and I think we'll have a chat with them, about them, not with them. That'd be a good one for the pod. We've been linked with Morgan Rogers. Scott Parker said over the weekend that it's a possibility that he will be going back. Yes.
We've been talking about outgoings. Let's cover it first. Mate, the panic over Lewis O'Brien going on my Twitter feed is off the scale, man.
I don't see it happening.
Panicking, worried.
Relax. I don't see him wanking his chest tomorrow on deadline day. I genuinely don't. I think he's. I would imagine. I think if Huddersfield Town are smart, they would have. This release clause would have. Would have. A clause. Inside there would have to be. It would have to be executed at least 72 hours before the transfer deadline's finished. Otherwise, Huddersfield Town. It would lose him at the last minute.
Deal. It's a done deal, apparently. I've heard inside info.
Phil, don't.
He knows nothing. He knows nothing. He's winding you up.
I think the only way that gets done is if Phillips and Rafinha are on the way out at Leeds. There's been
straight swap it in.
Straight swap.
O'Brien.
down here, yeah, they've seen the light. But no, I think unless Matt, you mentioned it before. The top of the domino effect where one moves and then 3 or 4 move underneath it. I think for Leeds to shell out that sort of money, they're going to have to let one of those 2 go to bring O'Brien in, and I don't see them letting either of them go. So
they've been after a guy from Salzburg, haven't they? A midfielder, and apparently they're not going to get him. So that might be why this O'Brien thing's come back around. But from Lewis has got the stumbling block really is he's got a release fee. We don't know whether that release fee has what I just said. Has to be put in before an amount of time. So we'll see, but I don't see it happening. Go on, Kos.
Phil, can I ask you, from a player's point of view, with us being challenging for Premier League, do you think that affects players' minds thinking, I want to hang about here to see, not only from an income point of view, but the players maybe who, if we were, 16, 17, do you think that there's no point, I want to move, or speak to the agent. Does that play a big part, or is it honestly?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You've got to. I mean, to be honest, you're thinking about yourself, aren't you? So you're thinking about your next move, and you're thinking about making sure it's the right move. I think for him, if Leeds want him, it's a tricky move for him, really, because does he see himself as someone who would start week in, week out for Leeds? No chance. Do you know what I mean? So it's what you're going to do. You're going to go to Leeds. You're going to fill a gap now, and then when players are back, then where you're going to get your game time. I think it's dependent on the individuals. To be honest, it really is. But I think definitely with us pushing for promotion now, I think it will entice him to stay. If that is on the cards, we have no idea, do we? We don't know what's going on, so it's all kind of hearsay. I don't for 1 minute. I don't think he'll leave.
I think the money is usually, like you said there.
Definitely, yeah.
You go to Leeds and you fill a gap.
Yeah.
Normally, if you're being paid 30 grand a week more than what you're being paid, you're quite happy to do that.
Exactly.
Lewis O'Brien doesn't actually strike. I know he doesn't strike me as that sort of player. He doesn't strike me as the sort of man who would want to go and sit on bench, because once I always think those players that do that, they move to a Premier League club. So say, let's take O'Brien as an example, and he goes to Leeds on a 3-year deal, and he only plays 50 games because he's just a bit part player. Yeah, he's earned a lot of money, but when that 3 years is up, who comes in for him then?
Exactly.
Because he's not in spotlight anymore. He's not been playing. He'll drop to League One maybe just to restart his career, and then by then he's coming up to 30. He's still got a long way to go. Don't get me wrong, but if he stays at town and plays regular top end,
you get the money.
Then do you move to a more substantial Premier League team? Who's maybe knocking on, pushing for Europe and stuff. So sometimes I think players can be a little bit short-sighted, and it's easy to say when you're not in that position yourself.
Yeah.
But do I go and earn a lot of money for a decent amount of money for 3 years, or do I stay where I am, play, and then in 5 years go and earn double that somewhere else? And I think it's an hard judgment call for a player.
He'll back himself though, Poz, wanted to get in that side.
Well,
He'll back himself. He'll back himself. He's a good player. He would. I think there'd be a period of transition, but I think he'd get in their side. To be honest, look, I can see why they're interested. Yeah, I can see.
If they come down in the back in the Championship, he might have been better off staying with us. But you can't. It's crystal ball situation.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, but
I see why some players move. But
the thing is, though, Matt, I'd be surprised if Bielsa's there next season in the same way Bakuna went with Gerrard, and now Gerrard's gone. Van Bronckhorst don't fancy him, and he has to move him. Yeah. Again, that could be at the back of his mind, mate. Not
maybe
coming at Leeds.
Maybe, but
let's hope it's not an argument tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening.
I think I would not have been saying this at the start of the season, but I do think his recent performances in the last couple of months have been very good. I think he's proven what he can do. He's kind of back to his best on most occasions. So I don't see why not. He wouldn't fit into that style of play. But it's a decision, like Pozza said there. It's a decision for him, isn't it? If he backs himself, he's going to kind of make that money anyway. Let the football do the talking. And I think for me as a player, you want to be playing all the time. And if he knows he's going to go somewhere where that might not be the case, as someone like him, I think he will want to be playing and be sure that there's a place in that team for him going forward. So,
for me personally, I just don't see that domino fall. Like Poz has mentioned dominoes, I just don't see that domino fall. And it's not an anti-Leeds thing, or me saying Leeds are skint or anything silly like that. I just don't see that domino falling. I think Leeds are setting their sights on other targets, from what I've seen, and I think they might just wait till the summer before. And obviously, what Kosi says, see what happens. But we'll move on from there. If Lewis does go, he's obviously dead to us if he goes to Leeds. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But so we'll look at incoming. So we've been linked strongly with two. Morgan, like I said before, Morgan Rogers has been linked. Scott Parker said that it's a possibility that Man City recall him and send him out to another Championship club. A few people got wind that might be us, Blackpool or Forest, so he's been strongly linked. He's only played 219 minutes across 15 appearances, but Bournemouth, obviously, the strength and depth they have is ridiculous. You know how they'll pass FFP. Will be a very interesting one, if they don't go up this season. But they also had a 12 to 15 million buyout in there as well if they went up. So, he's a player very well thought of. Left-sided, strong, 6 foot plus, 6'2", I think he is, winger, cuts inside, hits the ball, was on loan at Lincoln last year.
Tino.
Yeah, we'll move on to that in a sec before you get excited. Aaron Moy over there. And the new one, it's not just Tino Kosi, it's Faustino Adibola Rashid Andyourin is his full name. And he, or Tino Andyourin, just to us for now on. This looks like it could happen. Just the right noises are being made at the minute. And the right from the right people. A big number 10 who has been on loan from Chelsea to Lokomotiv Moscow this season. He's had an injury, but he's played 7 Russian Premier League games, 2 Europa League games, scoring against Marseille. That's a decent level.
Naby Sarr, though, mate. Naby Sarr's played Europa League. That doesn't mean no.
Not this season. Not this season. He hasn't. But yeah, so
you got Tino in attack, Pearson at the back.
Dear.
Town are going to the Premier League. Come on, Town.
I'm clipping that bit out and sticking it on, I think. So it sounds like he could play 8-10 wide up front, so it provides a lot of flexibility for Carlos and the number of positions he likes to play. Looks an exciting one, doesn't it? Kosi's obviously excited, but what about Phil? Phil Poz, if this happens, looks a coup.
I have no idea about this kid, so I couldn't tell you one thing. It's one of them where I like it when you're like, I mean, Liverpool have just signed this. Are they signing this Diaz or something? And straight away you go on YouTube and look at the highlights. And
goals,
the highlights
scores,
look
assists.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
I remember Leeds once signed that lad from America, winger. I can't remember what his name was now, but I remember my nephew like, look at this player, he's unbelievable, and he were doing all sorts of stuff. I'm like, look at this guy.
I'm still haunted by that on Twitter.
Yeah,
you remember
exactly.
That was a shit video though.
Always,
yeah, it was.
We said before. We said before, didn't we? We want players. We want attacking players. We want something a little bit different. So it is exciting, isn't it? Young kids want to prove themselves. Exactly what we need, really. So it's a good time to get them in at the moment. I think, looking at the way we've been playing, a little bit of creativity, something off the bench, a little bit of excitement. So yeah, fingers crossed there.
Yeah, Poz. He's on mute.
Yeah, he's doing a me, isn't he?
He's not even looking, is he?
Matt, I'll just put it before that. But the thing that I like at Chelsea must trust us. These teams don't give players to any old club, man. And there's no doubt in my mind that the Levi Colwill feedback, the way he's played, the way we've looked after
Trev as well last year.
Yeah,
Casey Palmer, Izzy Brown. Yeah, we've got a good.
Yeah. Trev's flying.
Trev's mint, isn't
huge, man.
Yeah, Trev's doing well. Trev, he's ever since he stopped his
always said
dodgy half and half haircut. I like Trev. I like Trev. I'll never forget the time I went. Of course, this is a silly anecdote, but
Moscow.
They've
said to Sparta Moscow, if you want him, 17 million. So
yeah,
17 million.
Southampton fancy him as well, and they've been looking at that. I'll never forget, Phil, the time that I went to watch Town on Saturday. Trev had his, half and half haircut, and I went to Tongue Garden Centre the next day, and the woman in the cafe had the same haircut. I'll never forget that. Classic.
Trendsetter.
Is this guy the X factor we need, mate, to fight us in that?
He's on mute. He needs to take himself off mute first, as Poz.
Come on, Poz.
Poz, we can't hear.
There he is. There he is.
I heard someone walking about, and I thought someone was going to come in and say something to me. That's why I put myself on mute. No, I'm just saying just about the Tino thing. A fella from Portugal's put a tweet in, Chelsea fan, and he makes a good point. There's obviously Colwill that's down here. Russell used to be at Chelsea, so he's got a good. He probably knows them too, and he'll settle in well. And it's just there's 17 odd games left, FA Cup chance of a bit of playoffs. It's a good move for him. And as Phil said, I didn't know who we were until probably about 7 o'clock tonight, so I don't really have opinion on him. I've never seen him play. I've just seen a picture of him. But you don't play at Chelsea till, maybe you do without youngsters they have. But there must be something about him. And somebody unknown coming in, no pressure, young kid. Here you go, mate. 20 games here.
Something to prove.
The fans will get behind him as well because it's an exciting one, isn't it?
It's new, yeah. Use people like Shalaba as an example. Look, mate, this lad came to Huddersfield. Did however many games, and now look at him. He's in first team, mate. Corwell, he's come. He'll be knocking on down at first team next year for Chelsea. So I always think it's good if you can get people in from Chelsea. Look at Smith Rowe. You can use that as an example. So we do seem to attract quite decent loanees. I remember days of getting random loans from God knows.
Kosi, I remember Andy Williams in the 90s. That was a belting loan.
Coming on loan and stuff.
Leon Knight, we got Leon Knight, didn't we, as a loan?
Yeah, there you go.
We're class.
There's a video on YouTube, by the way, that Kosi loves.
What a player he was! What a player! But yeah, he threw me off track there. But yeah, if he comes in as well as next season at Chelsea, is knocking on door at first team, so it can only be good for everybody.
And if we get promoted, it's 17 million quid. What's that? Drop in the ocean,
guys. Is it going to be good enough to get us in that six? Is this what we need?
Both.
I don't
think we can say, can we?
Can we afford anything else?
I don't know.
No, but would you get anyone else in of a different position, maybe?
I'd be.
Is that bot?
I mean, if this fella can play as up front stroke 10. That's my main concern this year, this window. And I would have hoped that somebody might have been lined up, but with takeover rumours and everything there, that could have put a stop to things. And you don't know, maybe another centre half if we're playing 4 across the back. Someone who's a little bit more comfortable on ball to play out a little bit better than maybe Pearson and Lees can, because it's not really their game. They're excellent at other stuff, but they're not as 100% comfortable on ball as what you might like. So that could have been somewhere where we could have strengthened. But looking through leagues, there's not too much movement from anywhere really. So I can't see that we're going to be falling behind further away than anybody. Let's get this young fella in and actually play him though, because it annoyed me when we got Meepo that he came and we didn't give him many minutes. If he's going to come in, let's get him in starting 11 and let him.
It never happens like that, does it? We know he'll be on the bench
Sheffield
first game.
United, I looked at Sheffield United's game last night. I watched that, and they should be in the 6, man. Their quality, it's ridiculous. Conor Uran. I mean, bloody hell, what wage is he on? And Egan, Billy Sharp, obviously records. They've got total class on the pitch, and that's what I mean. Stoke should be above us. There's no pressure on us. I know we've been up there all season, and for me, I honestly, if it just fills out 13th, whatever, I don't think we can really grumble. But it's nice to be kind of just talked about as a contender, isn't it?
Where do you reckon we're going to go? Where do you reckon we're going to finish then? I did. I'll be honest. Really sadly, the other day I had a spare 10 minutes, and if you go onto a website called The Fishy, I think it's an old Grimsby Town thing. You can do a predictor, and you can just press home and away on some of the results. And I did it, and I had Huddersfield finishing 10th, which they were quite close, but not far off. But that was obviously without signing anybody. I might change my mind on a few things now, but I had as 10th. I had Middlesbrough and Forest pushing up. I had Sheffield United missing out, but it's really tight, isn't it? And I went on to, I think someone said quite high up that we should sever ties with the second tier podcast because they've been throwing more shade at Huddersfield Town. I'll have a word with Ryan. And do you know what? Actually, Brady's recording with Justin Peach tomorrow from the second tier podcast, and I will go on there and I'll give Justin a virtual elbow drop for you. But there's I think we deserve to be in the conversation, Cos, and that's where I'm going. I think a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I think everyone would go, nah, we'll fall away. Don't even mention us. But now it's like, do you know what? Hang on, we're still there. Like you say, Cosy, still swinging punches. I don't think we'll be going away anytime soon. I think we might finish 10th, but I don't think we're going to go away. I'll be honest.
But Wednesday's going to be a fascinating game, isn't it? Because obviously we come off the back of it and away, here we go again, just what happens. And Derby, obviously, I know momentum don't count for everything, but incredible finish from that guy, obviously dislocated his shoulder. But they're going to come buzzing, still think they get out of trouble. It's going to be a big test for us on Wednesday. I think that'll be a cracking game, that, man.
Their away form's Derby's not as good as their home form. The home form's really good. Their away form's not that good. So hopefully,
get Stearman, run at Stearman, run at the Steers, man.
Put it on him.
Stearman,
got an assist today, Cosy.
If you're watching Stearman, Norwich performance, mate. First game of that season. We want to see defending like that Wednesday night, Steers.
I think that's another clippable moment as well, isn't it? Let's read out. I know I'm going to read out some comments from the transfer window because I did ask the question in the group chat, and we've got Morgan says, trying to see if that's a Morgan I know, I'm not sure. Hold on to Lewis, get Tino announced, and another lower league gem will do me. Bez says, hope we get this lad from Chelsea in and maybe the keeper, but more important to keep O'Brien. Rumours of Leeds back in for him. Richard Hookie says, would love John Swift. And then Eddie Martin says, John Swift, if you can find 10 million down the back of the sofa. My late dad had a really good saying when I used to go looking at cars, and he said, it's all right buying that car, but you've got to be able to afford the fuel that goes inside it. And I think that will probably, that will be, for John Swift, I don't think 40 grand a week is going to be possible.
To be fair, any car at the moment, it's really expensive to run nowadays. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of pet.
And you've got an electric one as well, Phil. But
mine's like Flintstones. You've got to boot bottom out of it and start running.
Mate, I've had an absolute nightmare. So if anybody knows anybody who's an auto electrician, Mercedes auto electrician, I live in Leeds, obviously, and fucking rats, have got in underneath the engine and have bit through the wires. And Mercedes are telling me it's going to cost me a minimum 1,200 quid just to look at it. So if there's an auto electrician who can help me out there with a Mercedes, let me know. James Johnson.
GoFundMe.
Yeah, no.
Tell you what, Matt, you want to
start an OnlyFans
engine.
You want to drive a Toyota I go over that Trafford Centre Bridge towards Whittam, mate, when it's about hurricane winds.
Will that blow off? They just blow it clean off, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Massive, that,
See you later, lads. Juice and more cream next week. Get your time off work. We're there.
Cameron Littleworth says, hope we get Tino on loan. Can't remember what happened the last time we had 2 players on loan from Chelsea. Yeah, there we go. James Johnson says, David Fox has done a cracking job as loan manager, getting our youngsters out playing, properly monitored, moved on to other clubs if they aren't playing out of position. So, yeah, David Fox has done a couple of things on, I think it's Town's YouTube channel, which is interesting. But, yeah, it's an interesting role, definitely. And Paul Jacobs says we're 7th and still have not played our strongest 11 yet this season. They know if you're Huddersfield Town and the chance to get promoted comes up, it's just one of those things. It'd be if Toffolo signs his contract. Yes, Harry Toffolo's been known to listen to this contract every now and then, and so every now and then. So any song,
and I'll send you it on. It's South Stand near Pozza at the front. It's obviously with COVID. I'm screwed now. Hopefully,
Well, tell them that, mate.
Yeah, man. First person will do it. I can send it on.
There you go.
Up the town.
If you love this time next week.
There's a team, right? They're a team of renown. They're the pride of the town. And the game, and all the while upon the field, often you can hear them play up and bring that cup, and bring the cup.